Hey Gordon, how you doing?
Morning, Andrew. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
It really is the morning, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an early start for us this morning for various reasons, but yeah, it is good.
So 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I'm usually up at this time, but I'm not. It takes me about 3, 4 cups of coffee to get going, and
Does it? Yeah.
yeah, and I've got
But
my pastries. But
yeah, I try to get into the office to start doing bits and bobs on a Monday and Tuesday around about 7 o'clock just to
really,
get myself going. But yeah, so
God,
it's not. This doesn't. It's not really that early, but it does feel like it this morning. Had a
uh,
hard weekend.
yeah. I know you had a hard weekend, yeah. Just to let you know, Gordon didn't bring me back any kippers from Whitby, but we won't
Good.
hold it against him. Well, so we know each other. I suppose we ought to have introduced each other to the audience here, just in case they haven't come across us before.
Indeed. So, Gordon Forsyth, dad of two children, young adults now, Sam and Lily, both with autism diagnosis and various other diagnoses such as PDA, ADHD, depression, um, borderline personality disorder, these sort of things that come up from time to time. Once you've got the diagnosis, it's there to come up time to time, eh? For goodness sake.
It does though,
However,
doesn't it? Yeah,
sorry,
it does though. It does come from time to time. It's not a constant, is it?
it's not, and that's what we mean because you may have the diagnosis, but some days you will present really, really well, and it's good. So yes, and then obviously, from the people that have been listening to us on a regular basis, we have packed parents and autistic children together, where I'm the chair, and there's four other ladies that help me run packed to support parents throughout Lincolnshire and beyond. Now, with being on the internet, we are not just dealing with Lincolnshire anymore. So yeah,
No.
we're being kept busy.
And I'm Andrew Whitehouse, and I'm a specialist in neurological disorders. I'm neurodivergent myself. I have got ADHD and auditory processing disorder, both quite severe versions of it. Um, I've I'm also, as I say, a specialist in neurological disorders. I do workshops. I do observations in schools, colleges, and some corporate. I do workshops. I do conferences. I did all three autism shows last year. London, Manchester, Birmingham. Presented at those. I do the TES SEN show. We've got We've just had Tes North, and we've got the Neurodiversity show coming up as well. So I do a lot of that sort of thing. Online support for families and also contracting for local authorities, doing all manner of things. So yeah, busy people, I think, aren't we? And yeah, and it's constant. We never stop. We never stop. We're always on it, And there's obviously crossovers where you and I do things together, and you know, it's a growing concern. I did a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder workshop yesterday, Gordon.
Did you? Did that go well?
It went really well, and what was absolutely fascinating about it was it's not a big deal, but it was interesting to me. All the delegates were Muslims,
All right.
and of course, and none of them had ever had alcohol, which was
How,
kind of
yeah.
well,
No, I was going to
so
say how strange that you'd be doing that to. Were quite a lot of the people that you were presenting to adopters?
no, they were foster parents.
That's what I meant. Sorry, foster parents. Yes,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's
I,
foster
I I
parents.
used the wrong word, but yes, you're absolutely right. Foster parents. Yes.
Yeah, but it would be essentially the same sort of effect. So just thought I'd mention that. What are we doing today, Gordon?
Um,
Stop. You remember Trumpton? Dinkin, 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 the little Cambric
I
Green, the little
do.
music box, and he'd come out and he'd go, "Today we're doing attention deficit, but we're not, are we?"
No, we're not. We're doing masking.
Masking. Oh man.
Yes. Am I doing masking on what podcast have we got, Andrew?
Oh, hang on. It's called Neurodivergence more than a label.
Yay!
That's the first one, isn't it? First time I got it right.
It
Yeah,
is.
neurodivergence. It wouldn't be so bad if it was, in fact, I actually come up with a name.
I know.
So, so right. So masking.
Masking, masking. We've touched on it, I think, over the last 6, 7 weeks
Yeah.
in various different things, but we've never really gone into what does masking look like.
Well,
And
that's
I
the
just
point, isn't it? It doesn't look like anything.
no,
What does masking look? Sorry, just to nub in there.
no, that's all right. It was. I've just done a little sort of video for the Pack Family website, and I was talking on there that I was out doing a little bit of promotional work at Market Race and Racecourse, and this lady turned around and says, "We're all a little bit autistic, and we learn to deal with it. We learn to grow up, and it doesn't really become a problem anymore." And I'm thinking, well, I honestly thought we were past that so much now,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I'm hearing it more and more. And it's because people look what they're going out because they're having to mask so much
mm,
to just get through the day instead of being their authentic self, is what I was trying to tell them. It's they're not being their authentic self if you think that,
no.
um, and the struggles that come with it, and they are struggles, aren't they?
They really are struggles, and it's a more common issue. I mean, I think we've really only become aware of it in the last few years properly. You know,
Mm,
it's we find out more about autism, ADHD, neurodivergence, and and it's recently that we've been finding out about that. The reason I said masking looks like nothing, because that's the point of masking. The person who is masking does not want you to know that they are masking
mm,
most of the time. I do a lot of masking myself, and I think the most common one that I do is create rapport.
yeah.
So I find common ground with people and I follow it, and I very much guide the conversation. I'm very much I like that. I wish I didn't really, but I guide the conversation and I take the conversation where I want it to go.
Yeah.
And um, and so, for me, I am masking to please,
Yeah.
and so that's one side of masking for sure. I've got a John Lennon quote.
Oh.
So, well, sort of paraphrase, but um, I've always been of the opinion that John was ADHD, 100%. He was one of these people who spent his whole life saying inappropriate things and apologizing for them,
Yeah.
you know. But this was not about him. The other person he was talking about was David Bowie. Now, David Bowie, actually, I've seen interview footage where he actually said he got ADHD. So it's not something he talked about a lot by the looks of things, but he had ADHD.
Hmm.
And the interview was with John Lennon, and they said, "What's it like working with David Bowie?" And he said, "It depends which one you get."
Yes.
And I thought that's really, and we know about him, and he's changing, and he's literally wearing masks, um, and being different people. But it depends which one you're going to get. And I feel myself, I'm a bit like that. You don't know which Andrew you're going to get. Now,
Mm.
I don't know if other people feel that, but that's how I feel about my own personality. But when you talk about that, you go, actually, this masking business is just, it's a defense system. It doesn't let you in. You can't come in. I don't think anyone's been in.
No, no.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I've thrown you all over the place there, haven't I?
No, no, no. It's good. I'm just trying to think of various situations that um you've mentioned over the weeks and various other things about how I know you really well, and a comment that that Stevie has made about how she can see through people's masks, or feel that
Mm,
when people are masking, because it's not coming through necessarily authentically and things like that. And you're right, I only know you for the you that you want me to know,
yeah.
and vice versa. And I think it is clear. This is going to sound almost condescending, not condescending, and contradictive, I suppose. But everybody masks.
Mm,
But it's the degree of why we are masking that creates the issue. Because when I'm with my friends, I am a different person to most people that will see me as Gordon at Pact or Gordon at home,
mm.
etc. Because I will talk on a completely different level with my friends, like we've just had at the weekend and that. And you go back and say, "What did you talk about?" "Oh, nothing. Didn't really talk about anything,"
Mm,
because we're talking absolute rubbish, and
yeah.
the language is so different to what I would normally do, and things like that. And so there's a Gordon who is a completely different Gordon when he's around his really close friends, to a Gordon who is talking on the the laptop to a podcast or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
or talking to parents and that. So we've all got different levels of masking, but it's the masking that we're talking about, of how do you get through the day every single day, that
Yeah.
becomes very exhaustive, doesn't it?
Well, two things really. First of all, this masking here, this podcast here is very, very complex. I'm just gonna move away from the light. Walk towards the light, Andrew. I'm coming. So, yeah, the masking here is very complex because we are on two levels. We're old friends. We love each other. We've known each other a long time, and we do know each other pretty darn well.
Yeah.
Um, but also we're involving you listeners, and you listeners are um are getting a kind of diluted version of me and him, because we'll both be masking. Me and Gordon will be both masking. So we're aware that we're talking to each other as friends, but when we get off the podcast, we're, oh, that went all right, didn't it? And the mask has dropped.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And then you talked about getting through the day. And um it's a bit so in our world, there's fashion almost in SEND. So,
Hmm.
it was very fashionable to be Asperger when the Big Bang Theory was big.
Yeah.
It was very fashionable to be PDA for a little while. Masking seems to be the big one. And when I say fashionable, I'm not being undermining people. What I'm saying is it's in the media. So it's in the media, and therefore people bring it to see, oh, that's like my child. And a lot of masking I see isn't actually masking.
Hmm.
It's what tends to be, particularly with children, is they are not presenting in a way that their parents would really like them to be presenting. And therefore, there must be something wrong. And therefore, my child is masking. Give you an example. You know this story. It's one of my stories again. I'll dedicate this story to our old friend Jason. Um, but anyway, um, I've just had a message come through from Rebecca Duffus. How are the
Oh, good.
Whiteheads doing? She knows because people down south call us Whitehead. It's Whitehouse, dear. But anyway, so this guy, Royal Air Force, said to me, I want you to go and visit my child at school. I want you to check in on her. She's having a terrible time at school, right? And I go, okay. And he said, the school will tell you that she's fine. And I'm telling you she's masking. Oh, here we go. So I go to the school and I see the head teacher, and the head teacher's got me in her office, and she said, Andrew, I've known her for a long time. She said, this is the last child in the world that I would be worried about.
Hmm.
I have no concerns for this little girl whatsoever. And then she said the magical bit, which people who work in schools will understand this. Um, the magical bit, she said, uh, if I have a visitor, she's the child I choose to show people round. So there's all this. So I then say, well, look, Dad thinks she's masking. I'll go and have a look. So the masking. Now I can tell you. You just said Stevie believes she can see through masking. Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah.
ADHD people are very intuitive, and I won't say I'm like it all the time, but I'm pretty good. Yeah, I think I can see through you. And so I spent half a day in that school observing this young girl, and she was fine. She was absolutely fine. There was no signs of any masking, because there's little cracks in the ice, isn't there? Do you know what I
Yes.
mean, Gordon? You
Oh,
see
my.
little. Uh, we were talking about Robin Williams,
Yes.
and again, that was on the last podcast. I want to bring him up again because he was a magnificent masking person. But you see the cracks in him so easily. There were no cracks in this little girl, and it turned out, and I'm cutting a massive story short here, that she wasn't getting on well with Dad,
Hmm.
and Dad couldn't accept that, so it had to be school. School was her happy place.
Yeah.
So therefore she was happy and functioning. But Dad could not accept the fact that he was the problem, and therefore it must be something else. And school, she's masking at school.
Yeah.
So it's a massive. That's I mean, for half a day's work, that I think that took me about a day and a half to write up.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
of but when you see it like that, taking it on even further, yeah, the actual masker, are you ready for this? Was Dad.
Yeah.
So Dad was high ranking in the Royal Air Force or what, you know, he's I don't know, warrant officer, something like that. I don't know. He basically he was masking. So what was happening was he's used to. I said, what happens if when you tell somebody to do something in the Air Force, do you expect it done immediately? We know the answer. Yes, I do. Okay, right. So there's never any question of it not being done straight away. Never. Okay. So he's taking that mask into the home
Yeah.
and he's expecting, things to be in the laundry basket, dinner on the table, all this kind of stuff, yeah. And so what the solution we came up with was when you get to your front door, take off your beret and take off your stripes or badge or whatever it is. Take these off. Be Dad before you put your key in that door.
Yeah.
And that was, so that's a cacophony of masking.
It's and it's I think people forget to see that side of things. It has to be the other person, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because we're not necessarily capable of doing that because I function every day. I can do this, I can do that.
yeah,
So why is my child not doing what
yeah,
I'm expecting them
yeah,
to do?
yeah.
And it's got to be the other person. Um, Mandy quite regular says to me, he says, do people at Pact really see this side of you, Gordon? You are really, really strange today. I said, of course they don't. Of course they don't.
Yeah, 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 and that's the bit you're not willing to share. Can you imagine if we all shared that stuff anyway? How inappropriate it would
Wow.
be, you
Yeah.
know? And so I totally get that, totally understand.
Mm.
Yeah,
And,
we
and that story you've just recounted there, I do tell, and it's mainly dads that I do tell that story because
do you?
it allows people to sort of take that pause and reflect on, am I doing that? Because I know
Yeah,
that I did. I expected my children to do it. And it was a matter of, no, I have to look at myself, and we
right.
do because you're quite right. We've put a mask on to be efficient.
Well,
Sometimes we
yeah,
have the mask on to be
he
efficient.
he's just put the mask on to do his job. That's all
Yeah,
he's doing, And if he was all lovey-dovey with these guys, it wouldn't happen,
no,
And so it's totally understandable. But to say to people, actually, you're the problem. So far, this morning we've talked about not masking. That's interesting, isn't it? We've
Mm,
talked a bit about masking with the RAF person, but we've talked about the child not masking. And
yeah,
it's very difficult for people to accept that it's they're the problem.
yeah.
How many parents do we work with that we have to say, actually, you need to change? We even have a workshop on that, you know?
Yeah, it's a crux of everything I do. I very rarely see children. I want to get the parents to understand that what we do is the most important, and how we need
Mm,
to change what we are doing.
yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. And I think when you're saying parents are the problem, and I'm saying what you're doing is a problem, etc., etc., we have to distinguish and make it quite clear is we're not saying it's bad parenting
No,
in any way, shape, or
no.
form. We are saying we need to be aware of our children are trying to be themselves,
Yeah.
and we haven't clicked because we're fighting so much for schools and everything else to put things in place for our children. We haven't made that change ourselves
Yeah.
because we haven't just realized that actually I need to change also. Because it's very, very difficult to see that, isn't it? When you're
It's
fighting everything
hugely
else.
difficult. Hugely, hugely difficult. And you know, we try to self-evaluate. We try to self-evaluate, but it ain't always easy. It ain't
No,
always easy, you know. And I see a lot of it. Having said that, we get plenty of the other way around, you know, where parents are saying, listen, there is a problem here.
mm,
There is a problem. I mean, look at the most common thing, I think, or one of the most common things, difficulties we have is the child that is absolutely fine at school and absolutely chaotic in the home,
yeah,
you know. Well, one of those has got to be masking.
yeah,
Which one? That's the question, you know. Um, and there is no answer to that. This is a big, big problem because I've worked with that for years. And what happens is it's either home is the happy place. No, it's one of four scenarios. Home is the happy place. Therefore, I can be dreadful at home. Yeah, I can
yeah,
cause all sorts. Or home is the happy place, and so I don't need to be dreadful at home.
yeah,
Or school is the happy place, and I can be absolutely nightmare running up and down where the wild things are. Or school is the happy place, and therefore I can be calm and happy in school. So you've got those four scenarios, and there is no rhyme and reason to it whatsoever. There's nothing.
no, no.
I don't know what the answer is until we've done a real deep dive.
And that's the thing, you've got to do the real deep dive. I've said to an awful lot of parents over the years, is that if your child's normally really contented at home, but really kicking off at school, um, make sure you've got homework, book, diary,
Yeah,
whatever in place, because we want to try and look for a pattern as
yeah,
to all of a sudden this week or this day, my child's been absolutely nightmarish at home. I bet they've been really good at school. I want to
yeah.
know what happened that day.
Do you know what? Listen to the school as well, because actually you're right there. I remember wonderful, wonderful teacher, Lisa Cassidy. If you're out there, we love you. We're the Lincolnshire branch of the Lisa Cassidy fan club, and she was great with my son Isaac. She found the pattern.
Yeah.
She found the pattern, and the pattern was Thursdays. Funnily enough, I've never liked Thursdays, but anyway. Um, she found the pattern, it was Thursdays, and she'd say, you know, she'd plotted it out.
Yeah.
And then, well, why Thursdays? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he was 8 years old, 9 years old, and he had Cubs and Scouts or whatever on a Wednesday night. Didn't get home till 10 o'clock at night. Absolutely shattered on a Thursday.
Yeah.
You're too busy running a family, you know.
Yeah.
You're too busy. In those days, I had four kids in the house. And so you're too busy running a family to be able to plot things out, you know. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
and it's quite easy for a school. The other thing, of course, is the structure,
yeah.
you know. And again, four kids in the house, you can't have any structure. You know, the best you can hope for is that they eat their beans and watch a bit of CBeebies. That's the best you can hope for, you know. But at school, they can make them calmer.
Yeah.
They can make them calmer because they've got visual timetables and structure and lunch and we always have a cheeseburger on a Friday. It's just perfect. It's
Mm,
and when these things aren't happening at home, the child either masks
yeah,
or doesn't mask, and
yeah,
either are equally difficult.
yeah, yeah. And you'll have said it to many parents. I know I have, and even schools. I've said to so I'll say, right, so try this, and then maybe this suggestion might work. And if that's not working, then try this. Oh, we're doing all of that.
Yeah,
And say, yes, you may be doing all of it, but how are you doing it? Listen to the way you're saying it. Listen to how
yeah,
you're delivering it,
yeah.
and whatever else. Because
Or how much chance you're giving it.
yeah, 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 you expect it to work immediately, because in some cases it can take 2 or 3 weeks. In
Yeah,
other cases, it will take 2 or 3 years. But you still have to continue on with it. And I was the biggest person. I would be the first one. I'm doing that. I've done that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's no
yeah,
trigger. There's no this. There's no that. And as we know, there's always a trigger. And yes, we are doing it, but are we doing it in the right way? And are we being realistic with our expectations as to how quickly they're going to respond? Because everything we do is sowing a seed
yeah,
for them to think differently, um, and open up. And if we can sow that seed, but still allow them to be their authentic self, we will have the masks slowly dropping because they don't feel as though they have to live up to either
yeah,
our expectations or the school's expectations. And maybe I can relax just that little bit more, because it's all about reducing the anxiety to
yeah.
reduce the masking, really, isn't it?
Well, let me tell you something, Gordon. I have learned more about parenting since my two sons became adults.
Yeah,
I have learned more about parenting because all of a sudden they're adults, they've got their own mind. And I realized very quickly and accepted it, by the way, which a lot
mhm,
of parents I know find difficult, accepted the fact that these were young men and therefore they need to make their own choices.
yeah,
And therefore I have to step back. And what has happened with them, and you've seen these guys, my golly, they've grown up.
they
And
have indeed.
they have. And these guys, yeah, are now making their own decisions. And although I will be there to advise, I don't push anything.
No,
Okay, son, if you know what you're doing, on you go. Now, the benefit of that is they have, my boys don't really mask anymore.
yeah,
What you see is what you get, you know? What you see is what you get. And so, um, because they've hit their comfort zone, but what you've got to do, and I'm not saying I'm the big I am, I'm definitely not saying that. What I am saying, though, is um, uh, it's in part and a major part because I've enabled this.
yeah,
Now, the trick is, can you do that with younger children? I know you've done it with Sam, you know, you've done it with Lily, and you've also tried the other way of trying to push the square peg in the round hole.
yeah,
We
yeah,
all have, haven't we?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it comes to a point, um, I mean, my family had a very traumatic time, and so it was very important for me that these lads did their own thing, made their own decisions.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, it doesn't have to be a family going through a traumatic time. It can be just let's give them the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, but it's very hard to do.
It's really hard. Yeah, interestingly, I found it very easy. but I
Yeah.
found it very easy because of the circumstances we were in.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And the stepping back and allowing them to be themselves and making the mistakes that they're going to go, I think it's hard, particularly for a parent. That it was certainly my struggle was I'm expected to change. Can I change? Why should I change?
Yeah,
Because I can see that they're going down a path that's going to be hard for them. And
yeah,
I don't want that. I want to make their life as easy as possible. And I don't want them to get bullied, or I don't want them to do
mm,
this, or I don't want to do that, because I can see what's going to happen. So my anxiety of what I think is going to happen if they do these
mm,
things
yeah,
becomes, well, as a parent, I shouldn't allow that to happen.
no,
But actually, as a parent, you should allow that to happen as long as you've had a conversation somehow to explain what options they have, but primarily it's your decision at
yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah, yeah.
And I found that to begin with very, very difficult because it was going against everything that I had been brought up to understand, really.
But you've done it, or from as I can see, you've done it.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah.
I mean, look at Sam. Look at Sam. You know, Sam. Uh, I think when I first met Sam, he was still in his slightly oppositional ways and things like that, I would say, you
Yes.
know. And now, I mean, the man's a joy to talk to.
Mm.
He is actually, I love chatting to Sam. I find him very interesting. He's a very calming soul, which I bet you thought you'd never hear someone say that, you know, but he is. He
He
is.
is.
He's
He
a
is.
very calming sort of chap. I'm sure he has his moments, you know. What's he like at home?
Again, at the moment, he's still very um, thoughtful. He's very measured as to what he's doing and everything
Mm,
else because he knows where he's been and he knows what he needs to do to keep himself calm. And certain things will start to annoy him again, but he's learned how to take the deep breath, how to change the subject or just remove himself from the room and situation. But that there are days where he has to um, be in control and tell us what is going to happen because he has used up all his energies to
yeah.
stay calm. It's a matter of I can't do anymore, and I am going to take control of whether it's right or wrong. In control today because I need.
But he can make that judgment as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, are you listening to this, listeners? This is, you know, this is what we're aiming for. This is what we're aiming, and what you've just forgive me, Gordon, but just reading between the lines of you, yeah. When
Hmm.
you tried to take control, it didn't work.
Yeah,
When you passed on the control, it did work.
yeah,
But how hard is it to do that when you remember holding him like this little time, you know? And then you want him to be safe um and we all do. We
yeah,
really, really all do, you know. I remember Ruben being a mod. He still does this mod thing, but he had a Parker. If you know the mod thing, the Parker, and it
yeah,
had all these badges stuck to it. I sat and sewed them on for him, and he was going somewhere. Can't remember where he was going. I said, "Son, and this was a really hard thing to not hurt his feelings and to not put." My big thing was he loved this Parker. I
yeah,
said, "Well, I can't remember where we were going." I said, "You can't wear it there, son. They will eat you alive."
yeah,
And the point is, but what I didn't want was him to go, "Oh, then I feel self." He's the sort of guy who's quite fragile like that. I'll feel self-conscious. I won't wear it anywhere. But here are the places you can wear it, son.
yeah,
Yeah. Now it's your choice. You can put it on if you want, but just be aware if you wear it to such and such.
yeah,
And and it's giving that bit of guidance. But when he turns around and says, "F you, I'm wearing it," fine. You made your
yeah,
choice.
yeah,
And you know what? He did, and I was wrong. no one bothered him.
Yeah. Different era, isn't it? Again, it's a, and if you think about it, the masking and the mod's a good example.
Mm,
With the Parker jackets, a lot of the Parker jackets that I think of mods is the big target on the back.
yeah.
And what we're worried about is if our child do this, they've put that target on their back, and they are going to be prime. Um, they're going to be fair game for anybody that's doing that. We're worried about they've got that target there if they're
Especially
not
now,
masking.
because back when I did all that stuff, there were thousands of us.
Yeah,
There's only the odd one now.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I just
so
go
sorry,
on.
I do because I will forget the story about Isaac. Do you remember he went out on his moped and he was going past Scampton Air Base and
Yeah.
he broke down or something like that, didn't he?
Oh man, do you want me to tell you about it?
Because that was a brilliant masking episode, and the
So,
awareness of Isaac was just amazing.
so Isaac, if you don't know Isaac, he had five comorbid conditions. He's just picked up a new one in the last few weeks. So he's got six difficult conditions. And Isaac, Isaac, yeah. So he's got a Vespa scooter, and he bought this Vespa scooter. For money he'd earned it packed actually. And he was out and about, gone to see his grandmother. And he's coming back. Now, I don't know what you know about Lincoln, but we had there was an airbase, a disused airbase, and at the disused airbase, they were going to house so many hundreds, thousands, I don't know, asylum seekers. So all the right wingers came out and they camped up at the airbase, you know, and it was a big political thing, and they had like big banners up, stop and have a coffee with us, find out what's happening at your airbase. You know, these people are coming over and they're all this, that, and the other rapists and murderers and all the rest of it. So Isaac's a kind of jolly little soul, but he broke down. He broke down, and anyway, these guys were right there with their big hut and stuff like that, and they went and fetched him. And they made him some soup and they looked after him and chatting to him and said, "What do you do?" Well, Isaac, amongst other things, he's a songwriter. So they said, "Great, great. You could write some songs for us, to stop these asylum seekers coming in and this, that, and the other," which is really not Isaac's world. He's going, "Yeah, yeah, I could do that for you. Yeah, that would be great, because he's frightened. So now he's masking and he's frightened. And eventually, the AA come along and they recover his scooter and they recover him and get him back. And he's like, "Oh man," he said, "it was terrible." And I had to pretend I was going to write songs for them and all this stuff. Massive, massive masking. And then all of a sudden he says, "You haven't seen my crash helmet, have you?" And he'd left it behind with these guys. So we had to go back again. And we had to go back again. I think he stayed in the car and
Yeah.
I went, but yeah, and he was waving like that at these guys, thinking, "Can we move it a bit quicker, Dad?" Yeah, yeah, masking, absolutely classic masking. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will write songs for you, you Nazis. You know, oh, I'm not doing that, Dad. No way.
Yeah, yeah. It was trauma. It was a traumatic experience for him that he just managed to, instead of going in on himself and really
Mm.
panic, he just became one of them for that few
About
hours.
40
Yeah,
minutes. About 40
yeah,
minutes. Yeah, I mean, and I mean, it's just most rational people, including him. It's not their way, is it?
no,
And so yeah, it was quite funny. I think the most traumatic bit was finding out that he left his helmet behind.
yeah. I've
Yeah,
got to go back.
I've got to go back to him. He said, "Can't I get another helmet?" I said, "Son, it was £100.
Yeah,
So can't I get? He'd rather pay £100 for a helmet." Yeah, interesting stuff though, isn't it? Now going back to the masking as well, yeah, we have this other situation where you be aware that professionals will mask
Yeah,
because they're not in their comfort zone. We see a
mm,
lot of this, don't we, Gordon?
we do. We do.
And I had one who is ab was I mean this was a special needs coordinator. This is not the norm. You must know this. This is not the norm. Special needs coordinator who was openly supportive to the parents of this child who did have exceptionally high need, but behind the scenes was sending me the most. Did you ever see the emails? I wouldn't have shown them to you probably because, but
I think I remember you talking about them, but I certainly haven't seen them. You've never
no,
shown me any emails, things like that, and
no,
rightly
I
so. But
wouldn't. It was a stupid
you
question
may
on my
have
part.
mentioned about certain things, yes.
And but I looked at this and these emails were like vitriolic about this child. I mean really vitriolic. And yet to the family, they were completely open and lovely or seemingly open, but
Mm.
not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. So it's tricky stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think we've spoken about it, and I think we do need, well, briefly, but in the whole episode of masking, how it can and virtually it's a high percentage, if nothing else, how it leads to burnout for a
Mm,
lot of individuals because they're doing it so often for so long, and at some point it does give, and particularly in young girls where they've been masking throughout the
mm,
thing, they get to a certain point and they just can't do it, and there is a period of burnout, and that burnout can be such a hard thing to come back from, and it can
yes.
take months, if not years, to get yourself back to where you were,
Yeah.
um, if at all, really, isn't it?
I cannot agree more. I cannot agree more. Yeah, it's when I just had this discussion at Christmas with my wife, and you know about this, and there was a party, and we'd been there. It was a family party. It was a very lovely family party. It was a very peaceful family party. Certainly wasn't a Whitehouse family party. Nobody beat up anyone's uncle or anything like that. It was a lovely party. Her family. The boys went and they had a nice time. But they 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 felt it wasn't culturally them,
Hmm.
you know, and so they've got a very northern sort of. There is a north-south divide, of course there is, and they've got a very northern way of doing things. And this was in Kent. So the following year they didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Actually, they were planning to go. They were really good about it, and then my wife said to them, "Well, look, you don't have to go if you don't want." And they jumped on that. So that was that.
Yeah.
Uh, I again enjoy these parties and think they're fun, but it's a different world of culturally with that family and my family. I'm trying to be really, really diplomatic here. There is no tension. There is no nothing. It's
Yeah.
just it's just different to what I'm used to. And so, um, but I had to go along. I didn't have to go along. I could have not. There's no way I can't go,
No.
really. And so when we get there, so when on the way there, I said, I'm gonna struggle. I'm telling you now, I will be struggling. She says, okay, you can mask. Can't you just mask like you normally do? And I think people, I can, yeah, and I will be all day. Yeah. Um, I will be all day, but the exhaustion that goes along with that, incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. I feel like I've talked a lot. Say something.
Hello.
Hello, Gordon. I was hoping for a
Yeah.
bit more substance there, really.
Right. So the summers. No, it is the exhaustion part of doing that, and we've got to. If we know we're going into a situation, or we're taking our children into a situation, that we know we are going to have to mask
Yeah,
more than we would normally, we've got to sort of say, right, I know that we are going to um, do nothing for the next 3 or 4 days. The rest of the week may be written off. The next 2 days may be written off because we are going to trade bringing ourselves to be
mm,
sociable, bringing ourselves to do a certain task that we know is going to have a detrimental effect on us, and we are going to need to have a time to recoup and to feel good before we can move forward again
yeah,
and function the way we would like to function. And there's always a trade-off, isn't there? If we're going to do it properly, there is always a trade-off that we have to be aware of and not beat ourselves up for it. We're going to accept that
yeah.
that's it. If we don't accept it, then it becomes a bigger problem along the way, really.
But you can't always do that, can you, Gordon? Because, for example, you and I, we got jobs to do, and we have to keep going. But we can do it for our children, I think is the. I was just came into my mind, and I don't know what brought this into my mind. I think I've been looking at um, some of the footage on Instagram from Holocaust Memorial Day,
Hmm.
and so and then I don't want to talk about that here. It's not the place, but uh, I agree that we don't want to be forgetting this stuff. So I've made an effort to sort of read some stuff and find some stuff. And then that reminded me of a film. I don't know if you saw a film years ago called Life is Beautiful. And it's an Italian film, and it's about the Italian Holocaust.
Hmm.
Okay. And I think so it's years since I saw it. And you've got this dad and son, and the dad and son travel to a concentration camp in a cattle truck, as these people did. Yeah. And when they got there, Dad says to the son, no, the son says to Dad something like, "That was awful journey, Dad. That was terrible. It was awful." And his dad turns around and says, "I agree, son. Next time we get the bus." And what is he doing? He's masking for the benefit of his child.
Yeah,
And that's the what you almost what you were talking about earlier is, you know, we try to protect them.
yeah,
We try to protect them. But this was a very young child. And he said, "Yes, son, absolutely. Next time we get the bus." And so, you know, I don't know how helpful that was. Um, Masking as well. So my obsession. If I talk about Robin Williams now, does that mean we don't have to do it ever again? Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm sure we'll keep popping up. But yes, let's talk about Robin.
Right. So I think we told the story about the clown last week,
We
didn't we?
did. We
Yeah.
did.
So the other thing is that Robin Williams was he 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 was the he was a really not very good masking person, and you could see through his mask so easily because every time he started to say something serious, he would he would make a joke.
Yeah,
He would make a joke, and then that the one I remember is when he had his relapse, he said it wasn't the end of the world, but you could see it from there. We didn't need that line. We
yeah,
didn't need him to say that, but he couldn't bear being too serious. And and I think about the class clown,
yeah,
you know, people pleasing, the people pleasing, the diversion away from the real me.
yeah.
You know, look at all these people that just do crazy things like performers, rock and roll musicians, and things
Mm,
like that. Um, uh, yeah, and they go up and they be this thing, and then afterwards they go and smash up the hotel room and things like that.
yeah, yeah. Used to never understood, and it used to annoy me. I understand it a lot more now. Particularly comedians. So you had Freddie Starr, Tommy
Mm,
Cooper,
mm,
um, Oh, there was one other that was going to come up. I'm not sure about Billy Connolly, but he's probably outside of this. But when they were being interviewed on Wogan or
Mm,
Parkinson Parky and things like that, it was a matter of they would he would try and get them to talk about themselves or about certain situations, and they always came in with a joke along the way. To as soon as it started to get a little bit serious,
yeah,
they would change it and throw
yeah.
something in to be really, really outrageous or stupid
Mm,
to take it down a different path because actually I don't want to go there. I can't go there. I
no.
can't let people see the real me.
Tears of a clown, Gordon. They call it the
It is,
tears of a
isn't it?
clown. Yeah,
Yeah. It's and I thought, why can't you just be serious for once and that, and it would be really really annoying. I can see this guy's head, his face. It's annoying me. I can't think of his name, but he was really. They were really just coping to. I need to be here, but do not talk about me. Talk about anything else, and I'll bring my humor into it. And
yeah.
it's great viewing for people that want to see the funny side of things, but you never ever ever saw the real individual. Um,
So what was really interesting about that is on the tears of a clown on the comedian thing. Uh, Laurel and Hardy did This Is Your Life,
right.
but not. It was the original American one in the 40s or 50s or whatever. But
Mhm.
and they were there and they were ambushed and they didn't like it at all.
Mm.
They really did not like it. That you could see they didn't want to talk about seriousness and their life stories and all the rest of it. It was really interesting to see how uncomfortable these two men were with doing This Is Your Life. And so This Is Your Life, by the way, for anyone younger than 100, is a TV show where, or was a TV show where you would they would they would ensnare celebrities and take them to a studio and bring up all the people in their past and they'd come in and to say a little tribute and sit down. It was quite good, really. I used to like it, but yeah, Laurel and Hardy didn't like it.
Yeah,
Gordon,
we have come to that time.
what do you think, listeners? What is we could almost do a part two of this one. I think we should at some point come back to this. I feel
And
like we've just
we're just getting into it, aren't we? And really exploring. And I think it's like everything else. We're going to be repeating episodes, but there'll be a different link
yeah,
to it because there is so many sides to everything we are talking about and
massive.
different ways.
All we
Um,
need now is some listeners.
We need listeners. We need them to tell us their stories of
Yeah.
how do they mask? What's their understanding of masking? What's their understanding of autism? What's their we if we give us that back, we will have so much other perspectives to work with
Mm,
because we're talking about our perspectives and we can bring in, we're very fortunate to bring in families and other people we have worked
mm,
with experiences from there. We do have a really diverse knowledge to bring forward to this, but it'd be nice to hear the listeners and how they see these topics and how it's actually affecting them because
yeah,
um, everybody's struggles, everybody's journey is so different. Even though we're talking about the same things, their journeys are going to be so different.
yeah, they
And
are.
to bring that side of things is just going to help another parent, another family think, I hadn't thought of it that way,
Yeah.
rather than just our what we're bringing to the table as well. And it's going to be so, so helpful. It's not just,
So talking about that, we are not experts. On paper, I've got lots of pieces of paper, and it doesn't make me the expert. Doesn't make Gordon the expert, does it?
no, no.
Just really, really. If you want to get hold of us, it's if you want to speak to Gordon, it's PAACT support at hotmail.co.uk.
That's it.
Brilliant. And if you want to speak to me, it's Whitehouse Andrew at hotmail.co.uk. We appreciate all feedback. Share it, like it, follow it. We want all these things. If you're following us on Spotify or that anything like that, be aware we're also on YouTube, so you can look at our ugly faces as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time, brothers and sisters.
Brilliant. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you
Bye.
so much. Right, let's hang on. So how do we stop this? Okay.